Hello and welcome back guys to new Kerbal Space Program video, and as always, nice lift off. And by the way, just as a small kind of remark at the very beginning, I have installed some visual mods right now, and tell me down in the comments below whether you like it more with, well, just the stock graphics or with this visual enhancement mod. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, at least at the very beginning in terms of the visual mods. Apart from that, we've got a nice booster separation there, of course, and that was a really nice translation, wasn't it? And yeah, actually, if you haven't guessed already, or from the title, but I think I say that in every single video, so I think I should actually stop doing that. So today we're going to Laythe, well actually to Jewel, like in the previous episode. So in the previous video we've been to Tylo. Go and check that video out if you haven't already, it's a good video. And well, like I said, I installed the new Kerbal Space Program on just the visual mods, and that kind of was asking to go to a really beautiful place. And Laythe is one, if not my favorite place in the stock Kerbal system. So that's definitely something where you have to go and visit, and you want to have a look at beautiful sceneries and enjoy the view you have there. But yeah, so I think I'm going to stop right now talking about that kind of thing, but more about the footage on screen. You saw pretty standard, nice gravity turn type of launch with a big, well yeah, actually pretty big rocket, which is our lifter here. Then deploying the fairings, and you can see a nice space station. So yeah, it is a single launch space station. However, I actually considered setting up another one or two missions to Laythe to further construct that, further improve or just add additional modules to that space station, because I think that could be actually a pretty decent staging ground if you think about it. Now onto the transfer burn from Kerbal to the Jewel system. We're doing it in multiple iterations, so you saw that the very first burn. Now we're going on into the second burn, and these two are the only burns I'm going to show here because there were in total of 4 burns. So, but you kind of get the idea behind that. And then we just fly right next to the moon and off into deep space, where we will do, well, kind of continue burning, since we otherwise had a moon encounter which would throw us out completely into the wrong direction, and that was something I did not plan, and well, whatever, let's just skip over. And there you saw small, well, the first peripheral fuel tanks got ditched there, since, well, it is not quite perfectly as part of the staging. However, you see there goes the second set of peripheral tanks. We've got there 2x4 fuel tanks just for additional delta V measurements, since, well, going out to Jewel does take some delta V. We kind of a bit over-engineered it, but it is, like I always say in all my videos, rather having too much fuel than too little fuel. And now this part of the footage is actually regular speed. This is something I rarely do, but like I said, this is such a beautiful mission, and I thought, yeah, well, I do these kinds of shots during the recording always, well, every now and then, these beautiful F2, well, without UI, closing to the planetary body that we are trying to visit, and so on and so forth. And usually I just kind of, in my videos, since I do everything around 4 times regular speed, these sections are rather short compared to the mass of the other other things that are shown on screen. So I decided to kind of leave it in here at regular speed to admire it, since, well, like I said, this mission is mainly for the looks. And of course, building a space station around Jewel is always, and really always, a pretty thing. So if you go out and type the streamer highlights playlist on my YouTube channel, there is actually a single launch space station to Jewel, and there we figured out a stable orbit around Jewel that is not close but between the moons. Also a rather interesting video, especially that's more constructing space station. This one's less construction needed. Well, you don't have a lot of different modules that need to be reconfigured like in the other space station video. However, it is already like 1.5 or 2 years old, so there were no breaking grain thingies out there, so I'm not sure whether it's still interesting for you. If you want to see it, go and have a look at it. I'd really appreciate. Yeah. So now, after a gravity capture, like in the previous video from last time we went to Tylo, doing again a gravity capture and doing some more gravity assists for a few here and there orbital maneuvers to A, save fuel, and B, why not? So here we fly right next to Val, and for those eagle-eyed among you, you've seen that we have 4 probes around the space station in a circular rotation, and one of these probes is going to land on Val. So that's actually also why I've set up a nice equatorial, well, it doesn't really matter about equatorial in terms of landing, but more to not get into a too inclined orbit afterwards. But still landing on Val here with a small lander probe is the next goal of today's mission. So we're not only going to build a space station, we're sending a space station to Laythe. No, we're sending out different probes to... Well, let's talk about that actually. So the idea was to send these probes to all 4 moons apart from Tylo. So one to Laythe, one to Val, one to Bob, and one to Paul. However, when I was working on the Paul and Bob encounter thingy, I realized, well, the comms range from these things is not enough to talk to the Laythe space station. So even if we have connection to the KSP via the relay of the Laythe station, when we're out at Paul or Bob, the space station is too far away if it's around Laythe. Well, it wouldn't be around Laythe, but just generally floating around somewhere in the Joule system, kind of, because I would do everything more or less in parallel, thanks to the power of Kerbal alarm clock. But like I said, we didn't have any communication capabilities, and that was kind of a bummer. Well, the issue was not in kind of controlling the craft, since even if you don't have connection to the KSP, you can use the full throttle, well, like the Z and the X key, as well as the nav control, well, the prograde, retrograde, radially in, radially out, normal and anti-normal things, so that wouldn't really be an issue. But the biggest issue would be we wouldn't be able to do maneuver nodes, and trust me, maneuver nodes are a good thing. But I think you know about that, since, well, maneuver nodes are pretty much the thing that lets you plan your flights. And here we are, have landed on Val, done all of this nice science equipment that we've brought with it, all experiments apart from the Science Junior, and then we jump back to the space station, which goes into another gravity assist, which didn't show actually on the maps, map screen, yes. So I was actually expecting to do another Tylo gravity assist before hitting Laythe here. But since we already get a pretty decent-ish encounter with Laythe here, we went for a nice retrograde burn. We are now rather high above Laythe, but still close enough to get captured with the enormous amount of fuel that we've got here. So there's really not a lot to talk about this burn here in particular. And by the way, if you've got a small moment of, well, free time, I could say, kind of the thing that I actually wanted to touch upon as well is, what kind of content do you guys really like to see? More SSTO videos, more let's visit another planet, like more, or body generally, like for example the Tylo thing, like let's go to Tylo, or the Duna exploration mission not too long ago, well, not the Duna SSTO video, but rather the let's go to Duna exploration with ASCAP mission, like 1.5 to 2 months ago. Or what kind of videos, generally speaking, you want me to do most? That would be really interesting for me. I'd really like to kind of have more in content that is tailored, or at least what interests you the most, since kind of if I do the videos or the things that I really like to do myself, that's good and very nice, and I do that anyways. I'm gonna do that anyway, so that's not really gonna change anything. However, I really want to focus a tiny bit on what kind of things people want to watch, and this would also of course help grow the YouTube channel. So this is also one of the smaller things that I have had on my mind for a couple of days. Now, when thinking, we're just not really growing at all, or at least I don't really have the feeling that the channel is growing. Yes, we've got more subscribers than we had, but still not enough. And here we have a nice crash of our probe, because the surface was bugging out and I didn't see the surface approaching, which was a shame. That's where we lost our first lander, but I didn't bother to reload everything because, well, why not? Mistakes can happen, and we have 2 other probes, and we're gonna land them now in Laythe as well. So, like I said in the very beginning, the idea was to land one on Laythe, one on Val, one on Bob, one on Paul, but since Bob and Paul are, well, technically in Delta V terms, and like everything, you could do it. It's not impossible, but it's like more, I don't really want to bother going to those without any probe control and without being able to use maneuver nodes and planning like everything half a decade in advance with gazillion maneuver nodes, and with the small tiny errors that will accumulate. You'll have to do the last couple of burns or something like that, just eyeballing it. You can do that without any issues around in the Kerbal system, but not around Joule, or at least I cannot do that around Joule. I don't have enough experience fiddling around kind of how the orbits are exactly, when do you have to burn to get there. Like for example with the moon, if you see the moon, or Mimbus actually frankly speaking, rising up above the horizon, you just have to burn until your orbit intersects the orbital line of that satellite, and that's it. Then you get an encounter, and once you're there you can just pretty much do a dead stop, and then you're going to fall down towards them. It's not efficient, no, but it's possible. But yeah, anyways, so onto the second probe here. We were re-entering rather closely to one of the smaller land masses on Laythe, so I decided to go and use up pretty much almost all of our fuel that wasn't used prior to that to try and get to that landmass in order to do a landing on the landmass. And just prior to touchdown we ran out of fuel, but 20 meters per second was still enough to be compensated by those small landing legs, since we are a rather light craft. It isn't an issue. And with that we have a first, well actually the second successful landing and the first successful landing on Laythe. Jumping back to the Laythe space station, which is, like I actually haven't said prior to that, in a low Laythe orbit, not quite perfectly circular, but 99 on 103 kilometers of altitude. So we are pretty low there, but still more than high enough in terms of atmosphere, since the atmosphere on Laythe is only until 50 kilometers, kind of similar to Duna. And the second lander, well, definitely not going to hit land, but the goal of this second lander, as you'll see just in a couple of seconds once we're going to go back into the map mode, went to the southern kind of hemisphere. And that was more or less the idea. Let's send one of the landers towards the northern/equator region and the other one towards the southern region. That's what I've done. Doing some science here. Well, of course it's a sandbox mode, it's not necessary, but why not? I mean, I bring those science equipment thingies more or less just as a design choice to show you guys that you can bring all kinds of interesting science equipment with you if you're doing that kind of thing in a career mode or science mode for that. Now onto the main event actually. So you've been waiting very long patiently for 14.5 minutes to get until the space station is pretty much at its destination. Now we're going to take the orbital tug, aka the transfer stage, which now without the space station has an enormous amount of fuel. However, we're just going to throttle up and switch to the space station back. So now the transfer stack will just crash into Laythe, and that's brilliant for us. So well, we don't really have to think about that thing anymore. It's gone and gone forever. Perfect, no space junk apart from this little small stack separator. Since well, doing these kinds of things, I prefer using stack separators just in case I turn them around in the VAB the wrong way. Would really mean kind of a disaster for this kind of contraption. That would totally ruin the looks if you had still some sort of decoupler on top of the cupola module. And one of the reasons why we bring a cupola module obviously is because we want to have this beautiful view, this viewport from where you can enjoy the scenery. And here we have a beautiful jewel rise. Just quickly double checking the action groups, whether we have the action groups all set up correctly. And well, yes we have. So this means we can now deploy the entire space station thingies. That means the radiators, actually four very large radiators there. I think they look rather neat, especially in conjunction with the kind of the main part of space station is obviously out of 2.5 meter parts, and then the very front, well, the cupola module as well, 2.5 meter parts. However, this small section in between these two crew cabins out of only 1.25 meter parts. And then with the radiators, kind of I think that's a rather neat design there. And of course, the main kind of event, main edition of the space station, the gravity ring. Actually the first space station with a gravity ring here featured on my channel. And with that, more or less, the video is concluded. By the way, just on the other side of the gravity ring, you can see this small Soyuz type of craft. This is actually the escape craft. So if something were to go wrong, we have 2,000 meters of altitude to get our crew back safely. And on this note, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, Spaceship signing out. Enjoy the view.